from the University of Witwatersrand, and he'll be presenting his session today on supporting academic staff to move to authentic online assessments. Craig, you've got 10 minutes for the presentation, and then we'll open the floor for 5 minutes of questioning.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for joining the session. My name is Greg Krull. I'm a learning designer based in the Faculty of Commerce, Law and Management as part of the faculty's teaching and learning unit at the University of Witwatersrand. And importantly, in terms of the context I'm talking about today is supporting academics specifically in our faculty. So that's where I'm talking from. So to sort of start the presentation, to think about, and it's been brought up a couple of times this morning in the symposium, is that really thinking about, there's a perception among many, and that includes staff, students, and employers, that online assessments or assessments in general cannot be trusted unless students are writing under invigilated exam conditions, and that the factor of not being able to see students does worry many educators as well as students, in the example that was written here by an anonymous student doing an online course in one of our schools in our faculty. And I think what's also brought in, as we've been talking about today, the whole notion of generative AI tools, is also increased some of these fears of students engaging in academic misconduct. But today's presentation, much like some of the sessions before me, I think I'd like us to focus in the opposite perspective and thinking about what are the opportunities for online assessment. What does it allow us to do? What does this enable? And as someone who works in teaching or learning and teaching support, how can I work with lecturers more around designing more diverse assessments and more authentic assessments? And whether you're operating in your own context as a lecturer or someone who's working with lecturers in terms of support, it's useful to think about how do we approach assessment in this manner. So the challenge that I wanted to focus on today is really thinking about how do we support, how do we support academics in my own faculty in terms of moving towards more authentic online assessments? And so the objective is to critically reflect on the implementation of a responsive professional learning micro course. And so we designed this micro course for academics in our faculty to help them think about adopting more authentic assessments or authentic assessment methods when it comes to online courses. So the theoretical framework that basically informs the study is you make use of Moore's types of interactions, where we want to consider how students engage in assessments in different ways and in different manners, and also thinking about, traditionally assessment is very much students writing in terms of assessments that are either essay type assessments or multiple choice type assessments, but what opportunities are there for different forms of engagement in the online space for online assessments, and what are those opportunities for either self-evaluation or self-assessment, peer assessment or peer feedback, as one of the earlier presenters this morning talked about, and then obviously lecturer marking as well. And one of the other presenters also talked about the potential use of AI tools to support marking as well. So the other aspect that informs the framework is drawing the importance of the authentic assessment cycle by Villarreal and others. And really, I think our focus really is thinking about how do we try and focus more on authentic assessment activities. You know, those assessments that really simulate the sort of real world problems and situations that our students will face when they go into their specific disciplines or professions in the work environment, and how can we try and simulate as best as we can some of those applications and some of the environments that our students are going into. And I think that's really the focus of what we wanted to do in terms of looking at authentic assessments that are less, or sort of more ill-defined and more open-ended assessments where there often isn't just one particular right or correct solution. So useful resources in terms of informing our thinking and approaching the design of this short course or micro course was really firstly the book by Diane Conrad and Jason Openow from 2018 around assessment strategies for online learning, which came out before the pandemic, but still very useful. And after that, Jason Openow through the Commonwealth of Learning took that open access open access textbook and converted it into a MOOC called Authentic Assessment for Online Learning. And as you'll see on the screen, they're currently running the second iteration of that MOOC right now at the moment. So those resources were really useful in terms of helping us think about what it is that we really want to focus on in our course, what sort of outcomes do we really want to focus on, and what sort of assessment methods do we want to encourage, we'd like to see in our online courses in our faculty. So looking at moving on to how we structured the professional learning opportunity for our staff. So we focused on doing a short course or micro course that's about 30 notional hours over 3 weeks. It's mostly asynchronous, so there's a weekly online synchronous session or that we usually do via Teams, but most of the activities take place through our learning management system. And it's structured sort of 1 unit per week of about 10 hours, which includes the sort of materials and assessments, etc. The first unit focused very much on sort of learning-centered design, as again, a topic that's come up quite a lot in today's so far. The second topic was talking about assessment and academic integrity and generative AI tools. So we started thinking about the design of this course before November when ChatGPT came out, but actually when we were then busy with the course, and we've run it now twice, once early in the year and then again mid-year this year, we thought about generative AI tools and the impact they're having on assessments. And as we talked about earlier today, the idea that the approach is not, as many people may want to do, to say, okay, how can we stop students cheating with these tools, but to think about how do we redesign our assessments and how can we think about assessments where students may make use of these tools. And then the last one is sort of the last unit is to sort of think about some of the issues in terms of authentic design, such as diversity inclusion, bringing in the principles, UDL principles, and also considering some of the institutional and technical challenges associated with online assessments. So really what we aim to focus on is thinking about authentic assessment activities, what those can be and how those can be adapted for specific online courses in our faculty, thinking about using things like portfolios of learning, case studies, critical reflection journals, making use of more continuous assessment approaches and other methods. In terms of the actual assessments in this micro course, we try to follow the good principles of authentic assessment. We'll try to model those as much as we could. So we have weekly forum discussions that are based on specific resources that the participants need to engage with. Then the sort of accumulation of each unit or each week is an authentic assessment design task. So we provide them with the framework and they need to come up with a specific task or series of tasks that they could be using for that is more authentic assessment and how this differs from what they're currently assessing. And then the intention is that we then give feedback as facilitators to those. And then at the end of the course, as a sort of summative assessment, there's a portfolio that's due where the weekly assessment tasks that they've designed, the authentic assessments, need to be consolidated and they incorporate the feedback that we provided, plus together with a synthesis of the reflections that they've done during the course. So we also ask them to do a weekly reflection in terms of what participants are learning in the course and how that's changing or influencing the assessment principles, and then an action plan of how to then incorporate these into their teaching practice. So the idea is that these are lecturers who are then going to apply these assessments in their own courses. Okay, so the methodology for the study is to really think about critical reflection. So I think using Rolf et al.'s model in terms of thinking about the what, the so what, and the now what, and drawing on the feedback from both the facilitators and the participants. So I think the feedback was mostly quite positive for this course, and a lot of it, as the first feedback, their notes, a lot of it, although we focused on the context of online assessments, a lot of what we talked about in the course and a lot of what the assessment strategies was involved was really about the more fundamental assessment practices and options of why we assess and what we assess and how we assess. And I think what's also important was having a space for lecturers to be able to think through their current assessment practices and play around a bit for changing those practices in the future. And then the last aspect is then just in terms of thinking about for participants, how do they redesign those not only individually, but try and foster greater change within their own departments or other colleagues with them teaching on the same program or qualification. So then moving to some of the lessons that we've learned from this, I think there's both challenges and opportunities. So one of the major challenges has been staff workloads, where we've had very few lecturers sign up to do this course, and then we've had quite a few who have signed up to do it and then just said they don't have time to complete it, even though they see the value in it. So that is a major challenge. Another challenge is in terms of the lack of incentives to change or to innovate when it comes to assessments. Many academics like to do the sort of traditional assessments that they're more used to. And that our university culture, going back to the debate between culture and strategy, although our university revised assessment policy last year encourages more diverse assessments, much of the university culture still favors more traditional assessment approach. So although the course does provide some ideas for change, I think there's many of the academics who take the course then battle with the time and space to be able to implement those changes due to other commitments and workload issues as well. So just briefly in terms of looking at some of the now what in terms of going forward. So I think we focus very much, obviously, here working with academics and supporting their transitions to thinking about alternative assessments. But going back to the quote that I showed by an anonymous online student right at the beginning, I think we also need to go more than just thinking about how staff can be supported to transition to alternative assessments, but also thinking about how do we support students in thinking about assessments in different ways. I think for the course itself, one of the aspects is we try to bring in as much examples as we can of authentic assessments in different contexts, and what we'd like to see going forward, hopefully from others who have completed the course, is to bring more examples from the local context of what Wits lecturers are doing and share those examples with future participants who take the course. And I think the other aspect that I've mentioned earlier was just about thinking about how do we consider the long-term evaluation and practice changes. So I'll leave it there. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Greg. From my side, I actually already have, whether it's a question or a thought perhaps, but are you considering doing a type of longitudinal study to then follow up with those facilitators maybe a few 6 or so months from now to hear whether the course actually translated into a change in practice? Because I think exactly those challenges that you listed are what we often experience in person as well. You feel so motivated after having done a course, but there's never time, there's never support to actually go and make the changes.
Yeah, that's unfortunately exactly right. So, I mean, I spoke to a lecturer last week who done the course who said, I would have loved to implement the changes, but I've just allocated, this semester I was allocated a new course that I hadn't taught before, and so all of my plans went out the window. And exactly that. So, yes, we do want to do a follow-up sort of 6 months after the participants have completed the course to see exactly, as you just said, what are some of the challenges, what changes have been made, and is it possible to go forward. I see there's a question about the course being open to everyone. So we at Wits, we use Canvas, so it's very easy. If anyone else uses Canvas, I can easily export the course and share it with you. If you're using another institutional learning management system, I think it may be a bit trickier, but I'm not. If you want to contact me, feel free to send me an email and we can try and work out a way of doing it. We do try and, again, as I said, it's based on open educational resources. A lot of what is in the course we drew from open access books and resources, so we're happy to share it as well with others. Again, one of the challenges is a lot of the focus is on our own context, so we talk a lot about our own assessment policy and how to implement it, but easy for others to then look at it and maybe get some ideas and adapt it.
Oh, perfect. Thank you very much. We still have 2 minutes remaining. Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to switch on the microphone and ask a question? You're also welcome to post in the chat pane. While you ponder, please take note of Kletuano's post in the chat pane. There's lucky draws and giveaways and all kinds of things for you to look forward to during our lunchtime session, but also tomorrow towards the end of this conference. So please make sure that you enter. They're really great giveaways each year. So Ricky just says thank you, and it's been very insightful. I agree. I can't believe the time went by so quickly. All right, that brings us to the end of the session. Thank you very much, Greg. And everyone, remember that you need to jump out of this session and then via the program, log into the next session. See you later. Bye.
Thanks very much for facilitating. Thank you.
Pleasure.